Hello, fire goddesses, and welcome to episode 80. First of all, thank you so much for all of you who have been listening to the podcast. I cannot believe I am already on episode 80. It is cray-cray, but it is because of you that I continue to do this. It is clearly and definitely one of my favorite things to do, and I'm so grateful. And before I continue with today's episode, I just want to dive in a little bit to what today's episode is going to be about. Today's episode is actually going to be a part of a series on relationships. And I have a few guests coming up that are going to be filtering through, so it is not going to be a continuous series, but I'm going to be talking about relationships most likely for the next 6 to 8 episodes at least, because it has come into my awareness that people need a lot of help with relationships. And it's interesting too, because never in a million years did I think that I would be having a podcast and talking about relationships. I always was a health expert. That's what I did. But what I was starting to realize from hearing from my clients, my own personal experiences, and let's face it, if you are in existence, living the human experience, chances are you're in relationship with somebody. You're in relationship with your boss, your siblings, aunts, uncles. It doesn't have to be necessarily your life partner or a romantic partner. It's a relationship with anybody. And if you're thinking, I don't have even relationships with other human beings, well, then there's always the relationship with yourself. And if you want to reference that idea, I encourage you to listen to episodes 11 and 34, where I discuss the most important relationship that you'll ever have in your life, which is the relationship with yourself. So in today's episode, I chat about those times in your life when your partner, and in this situation, in this episode, I am discussing your life partner. And in this episode, I talk about when there's somebody in your life that is not supporting your hopes and your dreams. Now, a lot of times this is seen with your life partner, with your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you call your life partner, but it also shows up a lot in families, doesn't it? Where you want to do this thing, you want to go out and do this thing that you've always wanted to do, and it's been calling you, and you're not feeling supported. So stay tuned. I'm going to dive into this concept even deeper about when our partners or when somebody in our lives is not supporting us, when we do not feel supported. And I have this feeling that this is going to be a very popular episode. All right, goddesses, stay tuned. Hello, fire goddesses. Welcome to another episode. First of all, gratitude. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast in 2021. It has been an honor to have you as a listener. It has been an honor to have so many amazing souls as guests. I just posted on Instagram just a little tribute to all of my guests that I had in 2021. And just in 2021 alone, I had over 20 guests. And I'm just blown away. I'm always blown away by what podcasting does for the world and really the impact that it can have. And one of the greatest things that I've experienced as a podcaster is getting to know so many of my guests and getting to talk to these amazing humans. So thank you so much. Now, as I said in the intro, this particular episode is part one of several. It's part one of a series of episodes that I'm going to have on relationships, because I don't know about you, but I'm witnessing and noticing that there's a lot of people right now that are struggling with their relationships, and they need a lot of help, and they need a lot of support. So in this episode today, I'm going to chat about what you do when you don't feel supported in your relationship. And probably most likely this is going to fall into the ears of people that are in life partnerships, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you need to be in a life partnership. A lot of times people they're given a hard time by their family, by their closest friends, by friends that they've had their whole lives, when they go out and they do something that they've always wanted to do. And I see this a lot in entrepreneurship, when there's this thing that you want to do and you're not feeling supported, because what other people do, what people from the outside do, is they are going to project their past experiences onto you and give you their opinion on it based on their experience. And I can't tell you how often this happens all the time, doesn't it? And, in some cases, I really do believe that this is coming from the right place. I remember I had a podcast, not a podcast. I wrote a social media post about not taking advice from people who speak from the past. When you hear people say, well, it wasn't like that when I was a kid, and the reason why I wrote that post is not because we shouldn't be taking advice from people that really want to help us, but oftentimes this advice can come through from others' interpretations and from their own limitations. And it comes from another soul's journey, and not necessarily from our own realities, from our own being. And that's what's really concerning about this subject to me. And that's why I'm doing a podcast episode on this, is because people tend to follow advice from others who feel that they have more life experience than them, or maybe they feel like they're more knowledgeable than them, or wiser or older. And maybe that is true to a certain extent. But the thing is, goddesses, is that the only person that's going to know what's best for you and what actions are best for you to take in your life is you. And it really does come down to delving into who you are and what it is that you want in life, and really get a clear picture and understanding of what that looks like. And as I've said in many, many of my podcast episodes, two of the biggest questions that I ask in my coaching business and my coaching clients is, who are you? And what is it that you want out of life? Because most people cannot answer those two questions. And here's the reason why, is because we have been, many of us, I know now, I feel like we're getting to that point where that's shifting. So me being the age that I'm at, this might be slanting more towards a generational thing, meaning the kids that are coming up today, the teenagers, the kids, they may or may not experience this as much as if you're a millennial or older. So as a society, we have been living through the lens of societal expectations, of societal norms. You might call it the patriarchy. You might call it society of believing in lack and limitation, of growing up with family members and parents, and a system where these beliefs were passed along to you. And it is only because these are the beliefs that were passed along to them. And what most people are starting to realize now is that these paradigms are no longer true. Because what happens in our lifetime, what we accomplish in our lifetime, what we do in our lifetime, is really up to us as an individual, isn't it? And that is why so many people are often walking around feeling dissatisfied in their life because they're living according to the expectations of somebody else. And a perfect example of this is you grow up, you go through school, you go to college, you get good grades, you get a job, you get married, you have children, your children have children, you become a grandparent, and that's your life. That is your life. And I don't want to diminish that, because I actually know people who truly believe that is their life path, is to go that route. But what I'm here to say and to spread light on is that is only one reality out of infinite realities. But that is the reality that has been picked up and chosen by our current society. That is the dream, right? If you've read the book, the Four Agreements, the author talks about the dream of the planet, right? That we're just walking around in a dream. We're walking around asleep, experiencing life through this dream state that is not necessarily ours. It is not necessarily an aspect of our sovereignty, of our higher power, of the best version of who we are. So with that in mind, I want to segue into today's subject matter, and that is about those of us who are in partnerships, or those of us who are in relationship with somebody who is not supporting our dreams, because that happens all the time. It happens when, I know that I said that this could happen in any situation, in any kind of relationship, but just for keeping it simple today, let's just talk about relationships, like life partnerships, because I feel like that alone is a subject that I could talk about for days. And that is something that I hear of so often now I work with a lot of women, I work with men too, but I work with a lot of women who tell me that their husband does not support what they want to do in life. Either, they want to grow, they want to join a coaching program, they want to start a new business, and their husband is not supporting them. But maybe for whatever reason, lack of understanding, the husband is not supporting the partner. So here's something that I really want you all to know. If you're listening, if you've gotten this far in the episode, chances are this is a subject that you can really relate to, and it's something that has happened to you in your life. If you are not feeling supported by your partner or supported by anybody in your life when you are taking on a new endeavor, this is an opportunity to look in the mirror and ask yourself this question: am I supporting myself? Am I supportive of myself? Because I'm willing to guess that a majority, if not all of the time, if you are not feeling supported in a relationship about something that you really want to do, that chances are there is something lingering within your being that believes that you are either not worthy, not deserving, that there might be some self-doubt in there, some self-worth issues, some self-confidence issues, self-esteem issues. So that is an opportunity really to check in with yourself and ask yourself those questions. And it could start simply by saying, if I'm not feeling supported, then what is it that I'm putting out into the world? Do I believe that I can truly do this? And let's just say, for example, you want to start a new business and you're not feeling supported. Is there a part of yourself, and it may be something that you really have to take a close look at and ask yourself these questions and be super, super honest. Is there a part of you that doesn't believe that you can do it? Is there a part of you that doesn't believe that you can do it? I have been on this, and I share these personal stories with you because I want you to really be able to glean some information that will help you in your journey and in your life. But I have been on a self-development journey for quite a while now. Been in therapy since my late teens, on and off, and then, working with a shaman, and in coaching programs, working with private coaches. So I've been at this journey for a long time. This is not my first rodeo. And what I've realized when I look at my journey and my relationship, when I was feeling like I wasn't supported, there was always this glimmer. Now that I look back, especially, there was always this part of me that was seeking approval from my husband. There was this part of me that just wanted him to just start jumping up and down and clapping his hands when I told him that I was signing up for this new program or starting this new business. And that never really happened. And when I look within myself, I know there was this part of me that always believed that I was unworthy of success. And it was a hard pill to swallow. And I am so grateful for my husband because he has been my greatest teacher in helping me get to this point where I know, and I still work on this every single day. I am not perfect in my self-worth, self-love journey. It is a practice. Self-love and self-worth is a practice that I have to commit to every single day in order for me to truly live from a place of self-worth and self-love. But if you're not feeling supported in your life by your partner, this is an opportunity to really start to ask yourself the tough questions. Do you love yourself? Are you worthy? Are you worthy of success? Are you worthy of a successful business? Are you worthy of whatever it is that you truly want? And answering those questions, first of all, those two questions I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, who are you and what do you want? Those would be two very important questions to answer that often take time, take a lot of self-reflection. And it's also something that not only is it important to really see and make sure that you're coming from a place of your higher being, so it is actually you who's answering those questions and not an outside source. And I'm going to go into codependency as part of this series. I think it's a really important topic to talk about that is very connected to what I'm talking about today. Because codependency, so much about codependency is about relying on outside sources to validate you and to prove your worth. So I'll just leave it at that because I don't really want to go down codependency right now because it is going to be it's probably going to be like an hour episode because it is a topic that most people are not familiar with because the word itself, codependency, comes from the addict world. So if you are somebody that's familiar with addiction, or if you've heard of AA, or you know of somebody that's been in Al-Anon or Alcoholics Anonymous, you probably have heard of the word codependency from there because it does come from that world. But what codependency actually is, like the embodiment of codependency, is so much more than coming from it's not solely about the substance abuse world. It is actually about seeking validation about yourself from a source outside of yourself. I can't wait for this episode, but I don't want to get ahead of myself because I really want this particular episode is really foundational. So getting back to what I was saying, once you answer those two questions, who are you? What is it that you want? Then you can go into really answering the questions, really diving into learning how to love yourself and learning how to value yourself, learning how to protect your energy and practice the self-care that you hear so much about people talking about these days that goes beyond going to the nail salon and going and getting massages, although those are really nice things to do. But as you're probably starting to discover, real, true self-care is actually doing this kind of work. Doing this kind of work so that you learn about protecting your boundaries, right? If you are somebody that doesn't love yourself, it becomes very, very difficult to truly set boundaries for yourself so that you're not always people pleasing. Does that make sense? So it isn't a matter necessarily of setting boundaries in order for, I feel that with boundaries, and I've talked about this in other episodes, people often construe boundaries as something that you need to be like super firm and super angry. And I'm setting this boundary. You can no longer speak to me that way. Like that was something that I used to say to my husband a lot, like in a very stern way, like you cannot talk to me that way. And what I found and what I discovered is the more I talked like that, the more tension there was in my relationship with my husband. And it made communication very, very, very difficult. And what I quickly realized, not quickly, let's be honest, because I've been married for 10 years now, is that really the shifts really started to happen when I was doing this, when I was 100% committed to doing this work, so that no matter what anybody said, no matter what my husband said, no matter what anybody on the outside said to me, if it seemed like it was a comment of not being supportive or not or disapproving, that comment couldn't penetrate me. But it really came down to me being super, super, super committed to doing this work. And when I say this work, I'm talking about working with a coach primarily. Like, I'm going to be perfectly honest. Like, I did therapy for, I don't know, on and off for 20 years. The results that I got with therapy versus the results that I got with coaching, I was able to get massive transformation in a very short amount of time by working with my coaches versus working with a therapist. And that's just, I know that there's therapists out there that really that are really, really good, but I'm just sharing my personal experience. So finding somebody that really understands you and can help you move forward instead of allowing you to take a place at the victim's table, supporting you so that you can take personal responsibility for your life so that you are not the victim. Because if you are feeling like you are not being supported by somebody in your outside world other than yourself, this is a really, really hard pill to swallow. It's a really hard pill to swallow, and not everybody is ready to hear this. But if you are not feeling supported in your life by another human being, by other people in your life, by your job, whomever, if you're not feeling supported by society right now, if you're struggling with making certain decisions, then you are not taking personal responsibility for your life. You are choosing to be in victim mentality. You are choosing to be in codependency. And it wasn't until I fully started to see that for myself. Now, I'm going to take this a little personal again, because I just feel like it's really important for me to talk openly about this, because I know I'm not alone here. And the reason why I know I'm not alone is because I work with people in relationships, and I also am in a lot of groups online where people talk about their relationships. Here's the thing about getting what it is that you want out of life and getting what it is that you want out of your partner. You are not going to get what you want in your life or get what you want from your partner until you fully embody your personal power and fully learn how to love yourself. Because when you learn to truly, and I'm talking about truly loving yourself, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. Like, another person talking about self-love. When is it going to ever end? But here's the thing. How is not asking these questions serving you about loving yourself. Do I love myself? And taking responsibility for any rituals, any actions that involve loving yourself. If you are somebody that is resisting this, and I know it, I've been there, I've seen my clients struggle with this, whether it be mirror work or any kind of practice involving self-love. I get it. I've been there. But what you're essentially saying is that you're talking, but you're not really willing to make the changes that are necessary in order for you to have the life that you want. What you're essentially saying is that you would rather just expect somebody else to make those changes while you sit back and not take any action in changing yourself. What you're essentially saying, again, hard pill to swallow, is that you would rather be in your control than work on yourself and change your life. Now, I say all of this lovingly, but I really feel that it's necessary to speak directly and raw so that you understand these concepts, because and I get it too. Like, I understand if you're thinking, what are you talking about? I'm responsible. Like, I pick my kids up on time and I pay my bills and I do all the things of a responsible human being. But what I'm talking about is personal responsibility, taking responsibility for your life, getting out of being a victim, getting out of codependency, no longer relying on outside sources to fuel you, and finally knowing that no matter what happens in your life with other people, you are full and complete no matter what. And if you decide that you want to go out and write that book or start a new business or do the thing that you've always wanted to do, you can do it because you know in your being that that is the thing that you are meant to do right now. So it really has been so important for the people that I work with to fully embody this. In fact, I don't work with people that are not ready to embody these concepts. Because if you're not ready to jump on the self-love wagon, what you're essentially saying is that you're not really ready to play big, and it's so easy to live our lives in a way where we're saying, I want these things. I want these things for me. I want the dream relationship, or I want to be able to speak openly and candidly with my partner. I want to have a successful and thriving business. But until you start to really dive deep and start asking those questions yourself about you and doing the work, then otherwise you're on the hamster wheel and you're going around in circles and you're just wishing and wanting and hoping. And wishing and wanting and hoping, let's face it, that's not going to get you the life that you want. That's not going to get you your dream relationship or your dream home or your dream business. Wishing, wanting, and hoping is only going to give you more wishing, wanting, and hoping, because what you focus your attention on just expands more of that. So what is it? Now that we're wrapping up, almost ending 2021, going into 2022, which I can't believe, because I feel like I was just talking about what it is that you want in 2021, and now I'm talking about 2022. But what is it that you hope to have in your life? I work with a lot of people that are, middle-aged or approaching that time of their life, the halfway point, right? 50. I'm about to hit my big 50 pretty soon myself. What is it that you want in your life? And who do you need to be to get there? Because it isn't a matter of your partner approving or disapproving, really. And I'm talking about, obviously, if you are in an abusive relationship, you don't feel safe fully expressing yourself, this is a different situation. I'm talking about the everyday person who wants more in their life and they're not feeling like they're supported. And here's the thing, goddesses. And before I wrap this episode up, I really, really invite you to dive into this concept, okay? This is what happens quite often, even though for a lot of people it's scary to take those first steps of transformation and really start to do the work. But once they start to do the work on themselves and really dive in and ask themselves the questions and learn to love themselves and really discover for themselves what it is that they want, what they find out is that often their partners see this change in you and they want that for themselves. So it's either going to, and if that happens for you, congratulations. That is amazing. That is the ripple effect in action. But I also want to talk about when that doesn't happen. You know, when you notice that the ripple effect is not happening in your partner, right? Because it really is. If I talked about control earlier in this episode. If you're working on yourself, and this is another thing that comes up often is with people who start to work on themselves, especially the women that I work with, is they're working on themselves, they're getting great results, and they share this excitedly with their partner, and their partner's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And it's really, really hard to hear that, isn't it? Because you want this so badly for them. But again, that's when you're in your control, when you try to force what you believe is right for that person on them. Because in the end, if your partner wants change and transformation, your partner's going to seek it out for themselves. So I remember when I joined my gym, Orange Theory, I was a member of Orange Theory for several years. And I don't know, a year and a half into my membership, my husband came up to me and he said, so where are you working out now? And I thought at first my original response or my original thought was that he was going to, say something about the cost of the membership or something. Because Orange Theory is maybe more, I would say more of an investment than just your everyday simple gym. So I said, I go to Orange Theory. And the reason why he asked was because he was starting to see the change in the results that it brought for me. And he wanted that for himself. And it took him a year and a half to seek that out for himself. So the best thing that we can do for our partners, really, is to be ourselves, is to work on ourselves and to improve our lives and to do those things that we want to do even though we don't feel supported. And what's going to happen in the end is one of two things. The first thing I already talked about is that you're going to produce that ripple effect, and your partner is also going to want that for themselves. The other thing that can happen is it's a situation where you're changing and your partner is no longer willing to change or it does not want to do the work. And then you have to make a decision at that point. When one person's evolving and the other person doesn't, then you have to decide, what is it that I want out of my life? Am I okay with this? Am I okay with being with a partner who is not willing to grow and change with me? And then you make that decision. And it's not always, I'm going to be completely candid, it's not always an easy decision to make. No matter what the outcome is, and no matter what the decision is, because it really forces you to have these difficult conversations with your partner. And they're not difficult. I take that word back. No conversation should be difficult. Because when we speak from the heart and we speak from our truth, we are speaking from our highest place. So the only difficulty is the difficulty that we choose to put on ourselves. And it is uncomfortable sometimes when you've never done this before, when you're in uncharted waters. It's like any change, right? If you're used to not talking candidly with your partner and then you decide, I want to start talking candidly with my partner, in the beginning it's uncomfortable. Anything new is uncomfortable. But, in the end, where do you want to be in your life? Where do you want to go in your life? Where do you see yourself in a year? Do you see yourself growing and evolving with this partner? And do you have a willing partner who's willing to do this? Or is it time to go your separate ways? And only you know the answer to this. Only you know the answer. I know that I'm not ending maybe on the happiest note, especially if this podcast episode speaks truth to you, because I know it will. I know relationships are always forming and relationships are always ending. And that is part of the ebb and flow of the universe. And it's something that I've discovered in my relationship that is a completely normal thing to go through the ebbs and flows. And, that's life. Like, we're not meant to live in a tiny little box and not grow and not change and not evolve. It's just not natural. It's not in integrity. It's not in integrity with the planet that we live in. It's not in integrity. It's not a natural way of being to just stay stagnant. I mean, consider that. If you've been stagnant, if you've been feeling like you haven't really changed anything in your life, how do you feel? Like, I guess some people are okay with living in that comfort zone, but chances are, if you choose your comfort zone, that is all your life is ever going to be, is living in a comfort zone. Right? So if you're getting the itch, if you're getting the pull, if you're getting the message, the intuitive hit to go after it and do more and be more and write that book and do that thing and quit your job and start your business and whatever it is that you want and whatever capacity it is, because the universe is infinite. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. But it starts with you. It starts with you doing this work and being a person who can have these things. It's not something that's just going to show up. And if it does, right, let's talk about the lottery winners, okay? So many people want to be millionaires, right? Or they want to be rich and buy lottery tickets. And what often happens to those lottery winners after they win? Or what happens to those instant success stories who become overnight millionaires and it's not in their identity to be mindful with their money? They lose it all. So it actually comes down to going through a major shift in your identity. So that is all I'm going to say about this. Stay tuned. There's going to be many more exciting episodes in this series, the relationship series. And if this resonates, I do invite you to follow me on Instagram at I am Angela Noel, or go on my website, Angela Noel International, and sign up for my newsletter, because I am going to be doing more events, webinars to support people out that maybe identify as not having the relationships that they want in life. So stay tuned. And thank you so much for listening to this episode. I so appreciate your support. Take care. Hi, this is Angela Noel, and thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you have found value in listening to this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could kindly share this podcast with those you care about. Please help me spread the word of empowerment and possibility and expansion by sharing this podcast. Or you could also leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Remember to follow me on Instagram at I am Angela Noel, or you could go to my website at www.angelanoelinternational.com to learn more about my work and to find out how you can work with me. Thank you very much.